Broncos country, it's been a little bit since my last video, and I'm sorry about that. We're kind of getting to the point of the offseason where everything's a bit dead. But in today's video, I'm going to be going over some updates from both OTAs and mandatory minicamp, just kind of giving you an update on the Broncos and what's been going on so far, as well as I'm going to give you my way too early predictions for the team awards for this season. I'm talking team MVP. I'm talking about team defensive player of the year. I'm talking about team rookies of the year, most improved player, stuff like that for the Denver Broncos. So if you do enjoy, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel down below, as the support is greatly appreciated. If you want to reach me for any business inquiries, my email should be linked below as well as my Twitter if you want to go ahead and give me a follow. I don't tweet a whole bunch, I'll be honest, but I'm trying to start getting in and tweeting more if you're interested in that. But with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump straight in to this video. So starting things off first, we're going over some OTA notes, and the first thing is John Franklin Myers and Pat Surtain, at least for the first media day, were not present. Pat Surtain showed up for the second media day, or the second day that the media members were allowed at OTAs, which were the following week. But John Franklin Myers was not at OTAs. He is at mandatory minicamp, and we'll talk a bit more about mandatory minicamp here later. But Sean Payton said he was not worried about John Franklin Myers' absence, as well as his agent said it's not about a contract, nothing to do with a contract scenario, although I do know he wants a new contract. It wasn't anything to do with that, and he is currently present for OTAs. Then Dre Greenlaw was nursing an injury during the OTAs, but he was still out at practice, hanging out on the sidelines, being that team leader for the Broncos, as I do think he's going to play a major role in the defense, as I'm sure a lot of you think that as well. And I do think he is going to be a leader on that defense. Whether or not he gets voted in as a captain, we'll have to see. But he is going to play a major role. It will depend on if he's going to wear the green dot, if he's going to get the plays in for the defense. I do expect it to be either him or Alex Singleton or potentially one of the safeties, but most likely one of the middle linebackers is going to be wearing the green dot, and it very easily could be Dre Greenlaw. Moving on to the third thing is Bo Nix was looking sharp out there in OTAs, and he's starting to become that vocal leader, and not just a leader, but a player coach. And what I mean by that is he's coaching up the other players and helping them out and helping them learn the offenses. He's starting to take a big step here in year two, learning and understanding the offense, and not doing a lot of thinking out there and playing and performing up to that level. So Bo Nix has taken a huge step in being a leader and as another coach out there, essentially, as well as he's developing some chemistry with tight end Evan Ingram. I think I mentioned that later here with the mandatory minicamp. And then rookies, Jahdae Barron, RJ Harvey looked impressive for the first media day session for OTAs, and we'll talk about some other rookies here in a little bit. Next up, OTA notes, Drew Sanders will be an inside linebacker, but a pressure player, according to Sean Payton. And this statement kind of confused me at first a little bit, but I do expect them to be an inside linebacker. I think that's what Sean Payton is saying, but they're going to have him as a pressure player where he is going to blitz the quarterback a lot. And we know that that's the type of player he is, as when he was first recruited out of high school, he was a 5-star recruit, committed to Alabama, and was an edge rusher, then transfers to Arkansas and moves off the ball to an off-ball linebacker, middle linebacker. And I do think they're going to try and kind of have him play a hybrid of both, being a pressure player at the inside linebacker position. I think that's what Sean Payton means by this quote here. Next thing is Nix was a big factor with Talanoa Hufanga signing with the Broncos. He had a press conference and he said that Bo Nix was a big factor on why he chose to sign with Denver. Then moving on, we have Bo Nix feels much more comfortable and further along right now than this time last year, as I mentioned previously, and that's to be expected. Rookies are given a whole lot on their plate that they have to digest, and with Bo Nix retaining both his OC, I guess his play caller is Sean Payton, the head coach, but same thing with the OC being Joe Lombardi. That's going to be a huge factor for him because every single year in college, he had a new play caller and had to learn a new system. So Bo Nix being able to continue in the same offense for 2 consecutive years will be very, very beneficial for the young quarterback. And then Champ Bailey and Peyton Manning were both in attendance for OTAs for the Denver Broncos. And I'm sure you guys know a lot of this stuff. I just want to give you a quick recap. And then for even more OTA notes, Evan Ingram will be a great safety valve for Bo Nix this upcoming season, being that easy either dump off target or threat down the field. He's going to be that safety valve for Bo Nix to throw to underneath potentially, right? So he's going to be a big part of this offense this upcoming season. Then RJ Harvey has made a big impact in the passing game as a running back, and we'll talk more about J.K. Dobbins because when I wrote these notes, he was not signed as a part of the team yet. Then Devon Vele is working his way to becoming wide receiver 2. That's what a lot of the media members and the press have thought with Devon Vele and how he was working with OTAs. Hasn't been present for mandatory minicamp, which I think I also mentioned later, but Devon Vele is looking really impressive, as well as, honestly, Pat Bryant, who's been a big surprise for me so far in minicamp. And then Garrett Bowles was not in attendance for the second media day of OTAs. And what I mean by media day is Sean Payton had only allowed the media 2 days for OTAs, 1 day per week for media members to attend. Garrett Bowles was not there, but I don't think this is anything of significance. I do think he's at mandatory minicamp, and I think everything is going to be fine regarding the left tackle. The Broncos, they decided to sign a UDFA tight end and Caden Prescorn out of Ole Miss. Now, I believe he was at Memphis prior to Ole Miss. He spent 3 years at another school before transferring to Ole Miss, and in 52 games had 112 receptions, 1,500 yards, 13.7 yards per reception, and 14 touchdowns. You can see the stats right there, played with Jackson Dart, and a lot of people had him as a top 10 tight end in this past draft, and I wasn't there. I didn't think he was a top 10 tight end, but I do like the value signing of a Caden Prescorn. I think it'll be interesting to see if he makes the team because I do think that's an uphill battle. You're going to have to compete with a lot of guys, and how many tight ends are the Broncos going to keep in the first place, right? Is it going to be 3? Is it going to be 4? I would say the locks for tight end for me are Evan Ingram, Adam Troutman, and then who else is there, right? You got Nate Atkins, who I think you really like. You got Caleb Lohner, who was a 7th round pick, who I do really like. I think he has a lot of upside for the Broncos. You got Lucas Krull as well. There's a lot of guys there, so it'll be interesting to see for me what the Broncos do with Prescorn. But I do think he's an intriguing option, and I think would be a very valuable practice squad member if the Broncos needed it. And if they got him on the practice squad, I think that would be a huge addition for this upcoming season. But it's going to depend on how he performs in minicamp, training camp, and in the preseason. So just because I'm thinking this right now, things could very easily change in the future. Then moving on, the Broncos signed running back J.K. Dobbins to a 1-year deal. It's about $5.2 million if I do recall correctly. And to me, J.K. Dobbins is a perfect signing for the Broncos. I do think he's going to fill in that 1A, 1B type of role for the Broncos, he's going to fill in that 1A, 1B type of role with RJ Harvey for the Broncos, right? They complement each other very well. RJ Harvey's going to have this great vision and speed, right? He's going to be a threat in the passing game, and I think J.K. Dobbins fills a lot of the same roles, but the big 2 things for me for J.K. Dobbins is, one, you have to take a look at the injury history, right? Rookie year, I believe he suffered an ACL tear towards the end of his rookie season, which caused him to miss all of the next season. Comes back, finishes his 2 years with the Ravens, and then plays obviously last year with the Chargers. And J.K. Dobbins has been one of those players who I really like, but just kind of has that injury history. But the second thing that's more of a positive note for J.K. Dobbins is he is one of the best pass protecting running backs in the league, right? He's going to stand out there and he's going to protect Bo Nix in the backfield. It's one of the things I liked about Travion Henderson in the draft process, but J.K. Dobbins provides that as well, and I really like the signing of J.K. Dobbins. He's been one of my favorite players in the league since he was drafted back in 2020 in the 2nd round by the Ravens out of Ohio State, and I think that right now, obviously, it's a 1-year deal, but depending on how Dobbins performs, I do think Dobbins could see an extension with the Broncos in the future. Really like this signing. Really think he is going to be a valuable member of this backfield, being a pass protector, being a player who, you don't have to have him as a bell cow back. You can He can split carries with RJ Harvey, right? Jaleel McLaughlin might get some carries, Audric Estime as well. Really like the signing of J.K. Dobbins, adding depth to a running back room, which last year was very, very weak. Then moving on, or I guess let me show you the running back room. I forgot I put this in here. I have RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins, like I said, as that 1A, 1B. You could put Dobbins above Harvey if you wanted to, but that's how I kind of see the top two backs looking. And then you got Estime and McLaughlin. They're kind of going to be the depth backs, right? Going to not always see carries, but Estime is going to be your power back. McLaughlin's going to be your scat back. And then you got guys who I really like, who we'll have to see what happens with the signing of J.K. Dobbins, but Tyler Bidet and Blake Watson, both of whom I really like. And yeah, we'll just have to see who makes the roster, because I do like the depth in this room now. I still like McLaughlin. I still like Estime. I know a lot of Broncos fans have given up on him. And then Bidet's been on the practice squad since we signed him from the Ravens practice squad back in his rookie year. And then Blake Watson was an undrafted free agent last year, who I still really, really like. So it'll be interesting to see how the running back room shapes out by the start of the season. Now, moving on to some minicamp notes. John Franklin Myers was in attendance for mandatory minicamp. Like I mentioned back with the OTA notes, wasn't a contract thing. He was working out, getting in shape. Now he's here for mandatory minicamps with the Broncos. Then Devon Vele or Blake Watson both were in attendance for minicamp, and I don't think Sean Payton is too concerned based on his press conference, if I'm remembering correctly. I still got to get caught up in some other things as well, but I don't think he's super concerned, especially with how Devon Vele was looking in OTAs. Then rookies, Jahdae Barron, RJ Harvey, Pat Bryant, and Q Robinson have looked phenomenal. Obviously, Jahdae Barron, first-round pick. You're expecting a lot out of him, and probably is the corner too. Depends on how you look at things. I think he's going to be the nickel corner for this upcoming season, but it depends on how you look at things. I really like Jahdae Barron. RJ Harvey, I'm expecting to have a huge year. Pat Bryant is looking tremendous according to all the members of the media and looking like a steal. Maybe I underestimated him. When I was giving out my draft grade videos, I liked the player of Pat Bryant. I thought it was early for the third round, but right now it's looking like Pat Bryant is a really good value pick in the third round. And then Q Robinson in the fourth, right? Didn't get a whole lot of reps in or at Alabama, obviously with Dallas Turner, with Will Anderson. Didn't get a lot of the reps. Then when he finally had his chance to start last year, goes down with an injury, but he has all the traits and all the tools, just lacked the production, and he is looking really good at mandatory minicamp according to the members of the media. Then Bo Nix, like I mentioned earlier, has improved immensely in year 2 and is developing great chemistry with Evan Ingram, both of which I mentioned in my OTA notes. Now, this is the time of the video where we're going to go over my way too early award predictions. I'm going to give you 3 names for nominees, just as kind of guys I'd be watching out for each type of award. And then I'll give you who I think does end up taking home the award. But yeah, let's go ahead with the most improved players. My nominees are going to be Troy Franklin, Audric Estime, and Drew Sanders. Now, the first thing I want to mention is a lot of people might be thinking Marvin Mims is going to be on here. In my opinion, Marvin Mims, obviously a all-pro returner in the special teams, and then started to break out or in special teams and started to break out at the end of last year. So to me, you definitely could put Marvin Mims here in the most improved player award, or I guess nominees. But to me, I think technically he's already been really, really solid. So most improved, I'm going to go with other guys right now. And then Troy Franklin, right? I think struggled his rookie year, but someone who I still have a lot of high hopes for. Audric Estime, who also really struggled. And I do think now that we've signed J.K. Dobbins, it's going to be tough for him to win that most improved player just based on how many snaps he is going to get. So we'll have to see, because this was made before J.K. Dobbins was signed. And then Drew Sanders obviously went down with an injury last year and then came back at the end of the season. But someone who was a third-round pick who I still have a lot of high hopes for, but through his first 2 years, hasn't done a whole lot. Rookie year was a special teamer, and then last year dealt with a lot of injuries. But my most improved player is going to go to Troy Franklin. I still really believe in Troy Franklin. I was super high on him coming out of last year's draft. We got him in the 4th, and I was ecstatic because we all thought he had that chemistry with Bo Nix, and he's going to hit the ground running. Starts off the season, I believe, as a healthy scratch, and then throughout the year got more and more snaps as the year went on. The biggest thing with Troy Franklin was the drops down the field, right? On the go balls, on the deep shots. Troy Franklin, the ball just seemed to fall through his hands multiple times. That's the biggest area where he does need to improve, and did show it in the playoff game, obviously catching that bomb from Bo Nix to score our only points in that playoff game. But I still have a lot of high hopes for Troy Franklin. I do think he's a dynamic playmaker, not the greatest route runner, but when he has the ball in his hand, I do think he is a very solid player. You can see his stats from last year. 3 drops, obviously those were some big key drops, multiple touchdown drops that obviously didn't happen. But I do still really like Troy Franklin, and I'm expecting him to take a big leap here in year number 2. Next are the Comeback Player of the Year nominees. Obviously, players who have dealt with a whole lot, either injuries or other type of matters, who come back and have a very solid season. For me, the nominees are going to be J.K. Dobbins, right? Was solid with the Chargers, dealt with some injuries again, obviously the injury history with J.K. Dobbins, but just added him on here actually. He wasn't initially on here because I made this before we signed him, but decided to throw him in here because I do think he is going to be a Comeback Player of the Year nominee for the Broncos with his role and how many snaps he's going to get. Then we also have Dre Greenlaw, another free agent signing who obviously 2 years ago tore his Achilles running onto the field in the Super Bowl and then didn't get a whole lot of snaps last year. Came back, but played very few snaps for the 49ers at the end of the year. And then Alex Singleton, who of course tore his ACL in week 3 for the Broncos. I think these are going to be the 3 guys to look out for Comeback Player of the Year. But to me, I got to give it to Dre Greenlaw. You can see his 2023 stats, and he was a phenomenal linebacker with the 49ers. Of course, did play with the best middle linebacker in Fred Warner, but Dre Greenlaw is a beast in his own right, and he is going to improve that middle linebacker room for the Broncos tremendously. So in my opinion, I do think Dre Greenlaw is going to win the Comeback Player of the Year for the Broncos, and he's improving an already elite defense where our linebackers sort of struggled last year, right? Alex Singleton started off the year, tore his ACL in week 3. Then you had Cody Barton, who played pretty solid, who parlayed that into a contract with the Titans. And then you got Justin Strnad, you got other guys, but I think Dre Greenlaw coming in, he's going to be a big improvement, and he's going to be one of the reasons why this is one of the best defenses in the entire league this upcoming season. And then here's his stats from 2024 when he came back, but barely played at the end of the season. Then we have Defensive Rookie of the Year nominees. These nominees shouldn't be too surprising. They're going to be players we drafted, because I do think an undrafted free agent could absolutely win Defensive Rookie of the Year, but it's highly unlikely compared to the players that we drafted, especially with the fact that Sean Payton doesn't typically like to play rookies early, if at all their rookie year. So to me, I'm going with the players we drafted, but again, could maybe be an under-the-radar undrafted guy. But the nominees for me are going to be Jahdae Barron, our first-round pick, 20th overall, Savion Jones, third-round pick, and Q Robinson, our fourth-round pick. In fact, I think these are the only 3 defensive players we drafted, right? Jahdae Barron, then we went offense, Savion Jones, Q Robinson, special teams, offense. So, yeah, these are the only 3 we drafted on defense, but I do think these 3 are the most likely for the Denver Broncos. Jahdae Barron, I do expect to start and get a lot of snaps at the nickel cornerback position. Savion Jones, I think, is going to be a rotational interior defensive guy. And then Q Robinson, same thing, but coming off of the edge. For me, though, I'm going to give it to Jahdae Barron. I think he's going to make a huge impact on the defense, being that slot corner, being that versatile player who can move all around the defense if you need him to. going to be solid in coverage, but the thing I like about Jahdae Barron is he's going to also help support in the run game. He's going to read those defenses, or he's going to read those screens and is going to go make a play on the ball like we saw so many times at Texas. I do think Jahdae Barron is going to be the defensive rookie of the year for the Denver Broncos this upcoming season. As for the offensive rookie of the year, same thing with guys that we drafted. To me, the nominees come down to RJ Harvey, Pat Bryant, and Caleb Lohner. Obviously, RJ Harvey, I think, is going to get a whole lot of snaps, maybe a little bit less than I was expecting when I made this with the signing of J.K. Dobbins, but I still think he's going to get a lot of touches both in the run game and the passing game. Pat Bryant is looking phenomenal in minicamp, like I said, with the media, and he could easily take this home. To me, it just is going to be where he's ordered on the depth chart, right? You're going to have Sutton, you're going to have Mims, and then you got Vele, right? You got Troy Franklin. Where is he going to play and how many snaps is he going to get? That's the thing that concerns me with Pat Bryant. And then Caleb Lohner, right? I do think he's going to make the roster, but I do think he's going to be around that tight end 3. So how many opportunities is he going to get? Probably going to be playing in the red zone mostly, but could see snaps and targets elsewhere on the field. So there's that. But for me, I think it's going to be RJ Harvey. When we had a horrible run game last year, coming in and making an impact, I think it's going to be hard for RJ Harvey not to win this based on the production, how many snaps he's going to get, and the impact he is going to make in the running game and helping Bo Nix improve in year 2. I do think it's going to be hard for RJ Harvey not to win this award, but again, either of those 3 guys I could see winning it. Pat Bryant, I could see winning it as well, just depending on how many snaps he's going to get, how many targets he's going to get from Bo Nix. It'll be interesting to see, but right now I'm giving the Offensive Rookie of the Year for the Broncos to RJ Harvey. Then we got the new award that was now announced a little bit ago in the NFL, and that's the Protector of the Year for the best lineman. And the nominees for this for the Broncos, Garrett Bowles, Mike McGlinchey. I'm going with the 2 tackles because they are very, very impactful on the offensive line. The whole offensive line as a whole is, but I do think the tackles are probably some of the most important. That's why they always go higher than guards and centers in the draft. They are some of the most important offensive linemen. And then I'm going to give the third one to Quinn Miners, who in my opinion is our best offensive lineman. And I'm going to give Quinn Miners the win, right? A 3rd-round pick in 2021 out of Wisconsin, Whitewater, has become, in my opinion, the best lineman for the Denver Broncos. And to many, he is ranked as one of the top guards in the entire NFL. He's a tremendous, tremendous player, not only in the run game, but as a pass protector as well. He's just a bully on that offensive line, and he is going to maul you. To me, Quinn Miners is going to be the Protector of the Year for the Denver Broncos. As for the Defensive Player of the Year, I'll get to the nominees here in a second, but I'm going to do what the NFL typically does, right? If a player, right, is technically the Defensive Player of the Year, but they're also the MVP, I'm going to give the Defensive Player of the Year to another player, right? Same thing with the Offensive Player of the Year. Technically, right, if a quarterback wins MVP like Josh Allen did last year, technically he would be the Offensive Player of the Year as well, right? So I'm going to switch it up. The MVP is not going to be on the respective defensive side, or they're not going to win Defensive Player of the Year or Offensive Player of the Year, depending on what side of the football they play on. For me, the Defensive Player of the Year nominees are going to be PS2. Again, I don't think this should be any shock, considering Patrick Hand won the Defensive Player of the Year in the NFL last year, not just in the Denver Broncos like we're doing here, but in the entire NFL. Then, number 2, Zach Allen, who is a force on that defensive side of the football, stopping the run and rushing the passer. He was dominant last season, and I'm hoping we get an extension done with him soon. And then Nick Bonito as well. He was just a force off the edge. Obviously, he had a pick 6 against Jameis Winston, and then technically it should have been another pick 6 off of Adonai Mitchell with the Colts, but it's technically a fumble. But Nick Bonito, hope we get an extension done with him as well. I think these 3 should be a surprise to no one as the top 3 Defensive Player of the Year candidates for the Denver Broncos. And then for me, I'm going with Pat Surtain. I think when you, and I know it's hard for a corner to win it in real life, and obviously Pat Surtain defied the odds and did it last year, but to me, when a player can take away a team's number one wide receiver and shut down half of the field, forcing the quarterback to throw to their number two target, right, or their tight end, that is invaluable to a team. So being able to eliminate a number one wide receiver for whatever opponent we face, that is tremendous, tremendous value. And I think Pat Surtain is going to be the defensive player of the year for the Broncos for quite some time, right? Hopefully for the foreseeable future, right? Then hopefully hopefully for the rest of the career, for the rest of his career, he's the defensive player of the year for the Broncos, right? Pat Surtain, one of my favorite players in the entire NFL, and I do think he is going to be the defensive player of the year. Obviously, it's hard to compete with guys who have a lot of sacks and a lot of production that way, but like I said, eliminating a team's number one, invaluable to a defense. Now, invaluable, right? I think I'm saying that right, but just in case I'm not right, he is super valuable. Pat Surtain is super valuable to the Broncos defense. There we go. Just in case, just in case I wasn't saying it correctly. But the offensive player of the year, here are my nominees. It's going to be Bo Nix, Evan Ingram, and Courtland Sutton. Now, maybe a little bit of some confusing ones potentially for you guys, but Bo Nix for me, if the Broncos are going to have any success, it's going to be with Bo Nix, right? Maybe you could maybe throw RJ Harvey, J.K. Dobbins in here, but to me, I'm going with Evan Ingram because I think he's going to play a big role in Bo Nix's improvement in year two, being that safety valve target. And then Courtland Sutton, kind of the same thing, as they already have the chemistry and familiarity with each other from Bo Nix's rookie year. So to me, the offensive player of the year, it's going to come down to these three players. But I'm going to give it to Evan Ingram. I think he is going to bounce back. Obviously, was hurt last year in 2024, but in the previous year, in 2023, with the Jaguars, he had 114 receptions. He was a safety valve for Trevor Lawrence, right? 143 targets to 900 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's going to be that safety valve for Bo Nix, helping him, giving him another target to throw to in this Broncos offense. So to me, easily could be Bo, and you might know why I didn't choose him, but I do think Evan Ingram is going to play a significant role for the Denver Broncos this upcoming season. Finally, moving on to the MVP. Here are my MVP nominees, and it's going to be Bo Nix, Pat Surtain, and Zach Allen. I think these are going to be the three top guys. You could throw Nick Bonito in here as well. You could substitute him in with any one of these guys as well. But for me, the MVP is going to be Bo Nix. If the Broncos, I've said this before, but if the Broncos are going to have any success this upcoming season, it's going to be in Bo Nix's improvement from year one to year two, and getting a run game and getting more weapons to throw to, while retaining one of the best offensive lines, and improving and understanding and learning the NFL and reading defenses, right, and getting more experience and exposure to NFL play. I think Bo Nix is going to take a big step up and big step towards improvement. And I do think he's going to be the Broncos team MVP, right? You're going to hopefully cut down on the interceptions, up the completion percentage, up the yardage, right? Hopefully up the touchdowns as well. I do think Bo Nix is going to be very valuable for the Broncos. And to me, he is the team MVP pick. But let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. What are your team awards? How do you think the Broncos are looking so far through OTAs and mini camps? But yeah, I know it's been a while. I'm trying to put more videos out here as soon as possible and as quickly as possible, right? Just kind of hard in the dead of the off season. But yeah, if you did enjoy, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel down below, as the support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Parker, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace out.